Good morning, Year 1, and welcome back for our English lesson today. So our new topic is weather, and we have been learning all about different types of weather. Now, our story features some very unusual types of weather. So should we get started and learn our new story for our topic? It's called Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. We were all sitting around the big kitchen table. It was Saturday morning, pancake morning. Mum was squeezing oranges for juice, and Henry and I were betting on how many pancakes we could eat, and Grandpa was doing the flipping.
Seconds later, something flew through the air, headed towards the kitchen ceiling, and landed right on Henry.
After we realized that the flying object was only a pancake, we all laughed, even Grandpa. Breakfast continued quite uneventfully. All the other pancakes landed in the pan, and all of them were eaten, even the one that landed on Henry.
That night, touched off by the pancake incident at breakfast, Grandpa told us the best telltale story for bedtime that he'd ever told. Across an ocean, over lots of huge bumpy mountains, across 3 hot deserts and 1 smaller ocean, there lay the tiny town of Chew and Swallow.
In most ways, it was very much like any other tiny town. It had a main street lined with stores, houses, with trees and gardens around them, a schoolhouse, about 300 people, and some assorted cats and dogs.
But there were no food stores in the town of Chew and Swallow. They didn't need any. The sky supplied all the food they could possibly want. The only thing that was really different about Chew and Swallow was its weather. It came 3 times a day, at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Everything that anyone ate came from the sky.
Whatever the weather served, that was what they ate. But it never rained rain, it never snowed snow, and it never blew just wind. It rained things like soup and juice. It snowed mashed potatoes and green peas. And sometimes the wind blew in storms of hamburgers. Oh, all those hamburgers.
The people could watch the weather report on television in the morning, and they would even hear a prediction for the next day's food.
When the townspeople went outside, they carried their plates, cups, glasses, forks, spoons, knives, and napkins with them. That way they would always be prepared for any kind of weather. If there were leftovers, and there usually were, the people took them home and put them in their refrigerators in case they got hungry between meals.
For lunch one day, Frankfurters, already in their rolls, blew in from the northwest at about 5 miles an hour. There were mustard clouds nearby. Then the wind shifted to the east and brought in baked beans. A drizzle of soda finished off the meal.
Life for the townspeople was delicious until the weather took a turn for the worse.
One day, there was nothing but gorgonzola cheese all day long. The next day, there was only broccoli, all overcooked. And the next day, there were Brussels sprouts and peanut butter with mayonnaise. Another day, there was a pea soup fog. No one could see where they were going, and they could barely find the rest of the meal that got stuck in the fog. Ooh.
The food was getting larger and larger, and so were the portions. The people were getting frightened. Violent storms blew up frequently. Awful things were happening. On Tuesday, there was a hurricane of bread and rolls all day long and into the night. There were soft rolls and hard rolls, and some without seeds and some with seeds. There was white bread, rye, and wheat toast. Most of it was larger than they'd ever seen bread rolls before. It was a terrible day. Everyone had to stay indoors. Roofs were damaged, and the sanitation department was beside itself. Sorry, sanitation department. The mess took the workers 4 days to clean up, and the sea was full of floating rolls. To help out, the people piled up as much bread as they could in the backyards. The birds picked it a bit, but it just stayed there and got staler and staler.
There was a storm of pancakes one morning and a downpour of maple syrup that nearly flooded the town. A huge pancake covered the school. No one could get it off because of its weight, so they had to close the school.
Lunch one day brought 15-inch drifts of cream cheese and jelly sandwiches. Everyone ate themselves sick, and the day ended with a stomach ache.
There was an awful salt and pepper wind, accompanied by an even worse tomato tornado. People were sneezing themselves silly and running away to avoid the tomatoes. The town was a mess. There were seeds and pulp everywhere.
The sanitation department gave up. Their job was too big. Everyone feared for their lives. They couldn't go outside most of the time. Many houses had been badly damaged by giant meatballs. Stores were boarded up, and there was no more school for children.
So a decision was made to abandon the town of Chew and Swallow. It was a matter of survival.
The people glued together the giant pieces of stale bread sandwich style with peanut butter. They took the absolute necessities with them and set sails on their rafts for new land.
After being afloat for a week, they finally reached a small coastal town, which welcomed them. The bread had held up surprisingly well enough for them to build temporary houses for themselves out of it.
The children began school again, and the adults all tried to find places for themselves in the new land. The biggest change they had to make was getting used to buying food at a supermarket. They found it odd that the food was kept on shelves, packages and boxes, cans and bottles. Meat that had to be cooked was kept in large refrigerators. Nothing came down from the sky except rain and snow. The clouds above their heads were not made of fried eggs. No one ever got hit by a hamburger again. And nobody dared to go back to Chew and Swallow to find out what had happened to it. They were too afraid. Henry and I were awake until the very end of Grandpa's story. I remember his good night kiss.
The next morning, we woke up to see snow falling outside our window. We ran down for breakfast a little faster than usual, so we could go sledging with Grandpa.
It's funny, but even as we were sliding down the hill, we thought we saw a giant pat of butter at the top, and we could almost smell mashed potatoes.
The end. Thank you very much for listening to our story, Year One. What we thought you could do now is, after listening to our story, we thought you could design your own town a little bit like the town like Chew and Swallow. So you can draw it or you can build it. And I want you to think of all the different types of weather you might see in your town, okay? So think about what it might be raining, what it might be a tornado, like a tomato tornado. So a real think and see if you can design your own town. Do you think you can do that for us? Fantastic. Right, we look forward to seeing all of your fantastic work on Tapestry. Bye, year one.
Bye.